Welcome to Journey for Service, episode 11. Once again, we are back with Calgary's next mayor. I gotta practice saying that. Randall Kaiser. Randall, hi, how are ya?
I'm wonderful, brother. Just hanging out here in my favorite little spot in the bush with the three Douglas firs, and I'm not going to tell anybody where this is because it's a secret. Yep. We're going to talk about secrets today.
Ooh, okay. Well, sounds good. We're going to jump right in. I just kept thinking, I mean, in this shot that we're seeing of you right now, we see only the two trees. So it reminds me of Twin Towers. I know there's a third. You know, but it reminds, Randall's got his own Twin Towers. I mean, he's got it all.
Perfect, brother. And we all, oftentimes in our show we refer to the Bankers Hall as the Twin Towers too, where the top of one of them is gold and the top of the other one is antimony or kind of lead colored or silver colored, all these little games that they play with our minds, the banks.
Well, we don't want to lead you or lead you astray, so we're going to just jump right into this. Actually, you're looking very happy, looking very bright. You got a very bright shirt on. It really matches your hat today. And you always have a grin on your face, but it seemed like you got an even bigger grin on your face today. How did the week go? The week looked like it was a good one. We were busy. We had a lot of interviews going on, actually.
Yeah, it was really fun. We had the interview or visit with Anna von Reitz and Harold, and if people aren't familiar with those two, please go check out our Dow Eternally channel, and you can find those links there. And then our buddy Sasha Stone, who we introduced to a bunch of the gang, that was a fun video as well. Other than that, like a few other good things. I mean, I still getting more people honking the horn. I don't know if it's just because it's cowboy hat and they're thinking it's close to Stampede because it's coming, or if they're starting to recognize me more. But there are people that will mention something, and as soon as they do, I just jump right in and start saying, well, I got to have the get up because I'm the mayor and you're the mayor. And, that whole conversation starts. Had an Aussie guy taking pictures of me this afternoon after I said that. He says, well, Len, I want your picture now. And he's clicking away on his camera. And I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever, it's all good. So, yeah, I've got one more really cool story that happened to me just prior to coming down here. I walked down here. It's about 15K from home down to this little secret hiding spot. And on my way down, I bumped into this other mayoralty candidate who's running, okay, not walking like me, because it's a walk in the park for me, but for him, he's running. And we'll tell a story or two, and we'll give him a little, what do you call it? I don't know. We'll give him kudos in a kind of a strange way at the end of this. Okay, so stay tuned for the end, and we'll discuss this other mayoralty candidate.
You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a little surprise at the end too. I've got a little story of my own that I'm going to share that seems to kind of fit into that concept. So we'll keep everyone in suspense until then. But now the time is to get a little bit more serious, I think. We were starting to talk about a few different issues last week, and then as we were talking about these issues, what really came clear was that it's hard to know what things are going to be like once this money system changes and how we do everything. It's not the same old. It's not going to be, I'm going to campaign and this is my platform and these are my policies and this is what I'm going to do. I mean, you've got one main focus, which is with the financial system and the banking and the comfort income for all. But beyond that, it's going to be, something in real time. It's going to be happening in the now. So, that's all happening. But globally, and some of the things that we've even been hearing about in some of our interviews, there are some global issues going on. And I know you mentioned it to me off camera before, how we're hearing about different things regarding, child trafficking and human trafficking. And those kinds of things. So I think we're going to jump into that. It's not a Calgary only issue, but I think there's a Calgary bent to this, if I'm not mistaken. So Can you tell me a little bit more about why you were asking me to ask you about, that topic?
Well, yeah, thank you very much, William. We'll go right into that, and please stop me if I keep going, because I'm gonna let her rip here today on this issue, because it is a worldwide situation that we've got on our hands, and the stuff that I'm going to speak about does happen in this city. Okay, we're not above the rest of the world. We're not sinless. Okay, up here in Calgary, there's some pretty nasty stuff goes on in this city as well. And the first thing I wanted to bring up is, I can joke around and kid around about masks. And last week we gave it a little rip on that 30-degree weather, which we're at again today. And, once again, not hearing or seeing Jason or Nahid or my buddy Travis coming out in public and saying, when it's this hot, please, folks, take that mask off outside, which I tried to ask for, and still not happening. They are lifting some of the things and trying to make it out as if, okay, we're all working together here. We can drop some of these guidelines and stuff, but they could definitely still be coming out and saying, look, when you're outside and it's 30 degrees, folks, because I know some of you are still fearful out there, please don't be fearful and take that mask off. So that's number one. And I can joke around about that. And I did a video yesterday in the Calgary Farmers Market showing how I handle a situation like that, where they're still, trying to force it on us. And I'd sooner joke about it and put on a pair of panties over my face or something like that, because I think it's so bloody ridiculous. But the one that really gets me is these children, when they're forcing these little kids to wear these masks, and these parents who are completely, utterly lost in space and breathing their own carbon monoxide, obviously, to put those masks on those little children walking around the city outside is just beyond insanity. So I want to bring up a little bit about that. Like we can put on many hats here, William, and I've liked to smile a lot, and I love to smile. When I was young, there was a little different story, and it wasn't out of anger, but it is out of frustration. One buddy tips your beer up and cracks your tooth, and he's damn well going to get her in the noggin. Like that used to happen in my good old days. And it wasn't out of anger, it was just reaction to stupidity. So I'm trying not to react to the stupidity of this masking of children, but I certainly want to respond to it. And it is just sheer utter insanity. There's not one child that's ever suffered a death from this supposed thing that's going on, and we don't know what that is, other than spiked proteins that are trying to exit our body from some kind of a poison cell, right? It's just to go any further than that, and even to give it a name like pandemic or plandemic or scandemic, doesn't make any sense to me. It's just a cold or a flu bug that has been blown out of proportion by the media and followed along like a bunch of little puppets at the government level. So these government officials that are out there, they're all going to have to leave. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm encouraging other people that get this, that understand this process, to start stepping up into that position and saying, okay, I'll prepare myself to lead too, or at least prepare myself in a position of support, because we're going to need a lot of people, because there's not one damn politician out there that hasn't supported this stupid diaper over their faces of people, and that's not going to be able to get off the hook by saying, oh, well, Dr. Fauci said, and look at, he's to blame now. Let's blame Dr. Fauci because he's a bad guy and he should go to jail. I'm a politician and I'm saying that. Look at Mr. Politician. You followed along with that ridiculous, pantomime for over a year. And now because there's somebody to throw under the bus, you're going to say, oh, it's Dr. Fauci's fault. It's not my fault. Not my fault. I'm sorry. Re-elect me, please. Put me back in. I promise I'll lead properly. Bullshit. Here's where you go, boys. All the way to the whatever, new job. Go get a job at Walmart or something. I don't care where you go, but your politicians, every damn one of you, gone. That's all I can say. Okay, every damn one of you. So I'm going to take a breath here.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you a chance to catch one, actually. But my thought was with regards to, taking responsibility. That to me is what you're saying, is that if we're always pointing the finger at someone else, I love that expression. If you ever find yourself pointing your finger at somebody else, accusing that person, remember you've got four fingers pointing back at you. So, that's
Beautiful.
a great expression. And it's a good reminder too, that it's easy to pin the blame on somebody or even something else. But if you take no claim and say, I had no part in this, you better think twice, because, we all, whether through action or inaction, have some role in this. And even if it's a small role, we still, consented in a way, or at least obliged. So, I mean, even the general public have a certain level of responsibility, I think, too. I don't know how you feel about that, but what you're saying basically is the politicians just took what was said to them, and it sounds like they didn't even ask a lot of questions to double check. They just went ahead and did it. And who knows, there's a whole bunch of stories behind that might be very interesting if that ever came to light. But taking responsibility is my point. So anything you want to run with from there?
Yeah, for sure, William. And somebody might turn around and say that I'm blaming the politicians. Well, listen, I'm not blaming anyone in particular, but the whole political competitive realm has to be responsible. That's all. Like, I'm not pointing the finger at individuals, other than to say, if you're the leader of this province or this city, that you definitely could come on television, be responsible for those people that are wearing the mask at your behest, and say to them, take that off when it's hot outside or when it's 30 degrees, because you're going to suffer. You could do something simple like that. And so, am I pointing the finger? Sometimes I do. And I'm not going to say that I'm not human by saying that, okay? However, yes, it's about responsibility. And if you're a politician, you've dedicated yourself to being responsible for the public, not for some unelected goofball named Fauci or Theresa Tam, who's also unelected, the Canadian representative of this thing. Are they to blame? Do you want to throw them on the bus? Well, again, what's the point? We just need to be responsible for what we've done and then step forward. And to say that these politicians can now step forward after doing what they've done is impossible. They can't, because they've hurt the communities, the economies, the depression level of people. There's way more people that have passed away in this situation from depression or depression related issues than there has been from some spiked protein. Okay, that's just facts. So as a politician, you need to take responsibility yourself without me blaming, without me saying anything. You just have to look at the truth in your own mind and say, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave. I tried my best. You can say whatever you want. Maybe I'll come back in a year or two and try this again, but I'm sorry, I'm going to step down. And that's it. Just step out of it, because there's no point in being there anymore.
Okay, so there's two ways we can go. I'm going to give you a choice. I mean, we have a fork in the road here. I could go down further with the political side and say, okay, let's talk about the political environment. And now you're running for mayor. Maybe you want to have people that have similar mindset, or at least a certain level of responsibility that they can provide as members of the council. So that's one option. The other option, which we haven't completely gone down yet, and that was actually the leading question, which was about child trafficking and that kind of thing. So which one would you like to pursue first? And then we'll do.
Well, we're going to take that one on first, because a lot of people will have a platform, okay, as the mayor. Like, there's a Asian lady who's got a platform who people have said to me, look, there's 250,000 Chinese people in Calgary, and her platform includes revamping Chinatown. Okay, so she's going to get all the Chinese vote. Is that a platform? Well, okay, that's the old-fashioned competitive mindset, and there's lots of people like that. We're going to talk about Ozone Dave later, even a little bit. Just give him a plug. That was the word I was thinking of. We're going to give Ozone Dave a plug at the end of this. But rather than talk about that, I'd rather say to you that I don't know the facts, okay, behind things like child trafficking, human trafficking, or something that I saw when I left my house this morning that is called a chemtrail, okay? So I know the difference between a contrail, condensation, and a chemtrail, okay? A contrail, and we've posted a picture at the beginning of this video, or in the thumbnail, of what I saw.
Right now, sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. I can post a picture right now that people can see as you're talking, just for a bit.
Yes, please. That would be wonderful, brother. Okay. So this photograph I took when I left my house this morning, okay? When I came out of my home up on top of Scotchman's Hill, this was over top of my city, okay? And that X on there lasted for at least a half an hour. Parts of it were still lingering an hour later, okay? So you tell me that is a condensation trail, okay? Tell me, somebody.
Condensation trail.
Yeah, that's not a condensation trail. That is something extra. And as the mayor of Calgary, I'm going to have someone look into it. At the very least, do a little investigation into the idea that something is going on in our skies, okay? That's all. I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm not going to point the fingers or say this is true. I think this deserves another look. Let's put it that way. As the mayor of Calgary, someone who's here for the people, know what the heck is going on in the sky above my city, okay? What is that? If it is simply condensation and you can prove it to me without a shadow of a doubt, then let's just move on. But to me, that doesn't look right, okay? So the X in the sky like that, the first thing I thought when I saw that was, okay, if there's somebody that's doing something like that, and if it's weather related or something else, I don't know what it is, but if there's somebody doing that, those people are going to know when they see an X across Randall Kaiser's box on the ballot form that I'm going to look into that, okay? I'm going to look into that, and there's going to be a task force to look into it. And if that takes alternative media investigation, well, so be it. Because to me, the mainstream Mockingbird media is not the place to go to look into what that is, okay? So that's the first one. I'll stop again and
I'll give you a breath, but I'm going to add a little bit here because I know a little bit of.
Thank you.
Know a little bit. Let me put it this way: I have looked into it a little bit, and what information I've seen, and again, like you said, I'm not an expert. I don't know for sure, but the information that I observed was that condensation trails, and I've seen videos on YouTube about this. Of course, there's all kinds of information on YouTube. Not all of it's accurate. But it seemed legitimate. It does require more research, like you said, that you were going to do. But condensation trails quickly dissolve, like dissipate. And the trails don't last long. You'll see it behind a plane as it's flying, but very soon after, like within a few hundred feet, after the plane and after the condensation trail, it just dissipates, and then you see blue sky again. So it goes away quickly. But the chemtrails, or these mysterious things, whatever they are, they linger and they hang around for a while. And you see these big streaks in the sky. And that sounds like what that picture was that we just saw a few minutes ago. So again, more investigation required, but that is one thing that I've heard about that too. So I'm going to pop into your next point because I know there's something else. And I do have the other search shot ready here for you when you're ready for that too. So carry on, Mr. Randall Kaiser.
Thank you very much. So the next issue is kind of related to us talking about the masks on our children and getting them, starting to screw with their minds at that sincerely beautiful young age to try and con them into believing that this is something that they need to do, because they do not in this case, and not in any case in my mind. These children have immune systems that far surpass the average human being here in Canada, who's popping pills and eating shitty diets. And I have compassion for every human being, don't get me wrong, but our responsibility for this temple, as I've said many times, is up to us. And for us to eat properly, drink clean water. If anybody thinks that, you know, additional fluoride is going to go in the water in Calgary, just a quick note there, dream on, because this mayor is not going to support that, okay? Not for an iota of a second. You want to put fluoride on your children's teeth with toothpaste or something, that's your call. I don't recommend it. But there's certainly not going to be anything but an even cleaner water system than we already have here in Calgary. Water runs directly out of the springs and the mountain snowfall in the mountains 60 miles west of us. We have one of the most clean water supplies in Canada, in the world probably. So fluoride, no, ain't gonna happen. And I mean, can I be the only one deciding that? I can't say that I am or will be, but the mayor's sure not gonna support it. Thank you, William.
Have you, I'm going to follow this. I think it's important for me to ask a little bit more about the fluoride situation, if you know anything more about it. I had, again, heard some information last year in the fall, winter time, that fluoride was actually being taken to court, like the use of fluoride and its effects on mankind was being taken to court as far as whether all the claims about the beneficial qualities of fluoride were actually all that they were cracked up to be. I've heard nothing more about it, but I actually remember hearing it on, can I remember the guy's name right now? The Corbett report. He had mentioned that in one of his reports that fluoride was being taken to court. So I hadn't heard anything more about it. Had you heard anything more about it?
No, not really, William. I mean, you know, I have my opinion from, you know, research that I've done myself, but I don't want to quote anything in particular. Again, I'd like to just, one thing that I'd like to point out in the whole idea of your teeth is that salts, and especially some certain salts, like bamboo salt, for instance, when I wake up in the morning, I put bamboo salt in on my teeth, okay, about half a teaspoon, and I wash it around, you know, like just kind of to get it moving around in my mouth. And that salt is a, you know, is a cleaning agent, right? There's a lot of people in the old days used to brush their teeth with baking soda, for instance. In the evening before I go to bed, I brush my teeth with coconut oil. And a lot of people will use like a oil flush where they just, you know, swish coconut oil in their mouth and then rinse it out at night. So there's so many options to healthy teeth out there that, you know, going to a chemical is just, you know, just insane in my mind. But that's my opinion. And of course, that's what I'm here for, giving my opinion. So I think we can move on there, because I was kind of leading up to the idea of the children once again, and again, the teeth and the masks and everything else. But what the next picture that we're going to bring up was taken this morning as well, or this afternoon, just after I left home and took that picture of that X in the sky. And this picture is of a bunch of little booties and a bunch of little teddy bears in front of City Hall. Okay, and these are to represent the children, and especially the Native children that have gone missing and that have been abducted, mostly in the Native community. Okay, and this is a demonstration that's been up there for, I think, at least a week now, and we haven't had too much rain, thank God, so it hasn't ruined it. But they've got little candles, and they must be coming out every once in a while and lighting candles and stuff. But this is to represent not children from the past, but children in the recent times, right in front of City Hall, as you can see, that are being abducted and being, you know, lost, simply put. Okay, so that's where I said earlier, this idea that Calgary gets off the hook for being some kind of a serene place. It is, don't get me wrong, and I love it, but there are still problems, okay? So the idea of trafficking of children, and not just for sexual whatever, like that, we know that kind of stuff happens around the world. I believe that we are in the midst of a huge cleanup on this earth, okay? And there's a lot of those horrible people that have done these kind of heinous acts that are on the run and that have, either been arrested already. There's been way more arrests in the US in Donald Trump's reign as president in 4 years than there was in decades before that. So that's one area where I think Donald Trump had a good handle on things, one of many areas, okay? Obviously, this thing that they call Joe Biden, the whole story is unfolding in a divine fashion to expose the ridiculousness of this liberal democratic so-called elected, whatever you want to call it, this corporate government that's down in the States. It just makes you sick to watch. But those election results are all being tallied and all being changed. That election is going to change, and Donald Trump's going to come back. Am I a big Trump fan? If you've listened to a lot of my videos, you'll say probably not, because I think Trump is still keeping some secrets too. But on that secret side, and seeing those little booties and those little teddy bears and stuff, there's stories. And once again, okay, these are stories, just like the chemtrail story that we told. I don't know for a fact, but there's a lot of stories out there that talk about tunnels underneath these cities, underneath Calgary, underneath Vancouver, underneath many major cities that were used, okay, for the movement of not only children, but drugs and other kind of, horrible criminal things. And a lot of people are saying that these DUMBs, as they call them, deep underground military bases or tunnels connecting them, have been used in a horrible fashion for criminal activity. Now, the other day, I was walking along and I saw these two young Calgary City police officers, and they were buff. I'm telling you, like muscles coming out of their neck, everywhere. These guys were buff. And they stopped on their two bikes at the top of this little hill, and I walked up to them, caught up to them because they stopped. I guess they were tired. I wasn't. And they got to the top of this hill, and they were sitting there and they were talking to each other about what a good workout that was and everything. And I thought, well, you guys are on duty, I think, like, are you talking about your workout here? I didn't mention anything to them, but I thought to myself, okay, when this is the mayor, Randall Kaiser is the mayor, we're going to have a visit with the police officers, okay? And we're going to just sit down with all of them, or they can sit down and I'll stand up, whatever, if they can't hack it. And I'm going to just stand there and say, okay, guys, we have a lot less crime in this city. In this lockdown situation we have on our hands, there hasn't been as much crime. And that's pretty much happened around the world, right? Because the criminals are even wearing their masks and hiding and stuff like that because they're scared too of something, I guess. I don't know what the hell's going on in their heads, and I don't care. I walk up behind, like last week I mentioned to you, maybe I didn't in the show, that I was walking along behind a couple drug dealers that were coming up to their marks, and the guys were out of it on the street. Well, I guess he doesn't need any more right now, and laughing amongst each other, these two drug dealers, right? Both of them had masks around their neck, like they were, so what the hell's going on with their minds is beyond me. But the drug trade and alcohol has all been participated in by the governments of the world too. We know that. They sell cannabis here in Alberta, and, they're right in that business now, the government. And booze they've been in for the longest time, and pharmaceuticals, which is, honest to God, like I've experienced more psychotic activity with people that are on sleeping pills and other psychoactive drugs, like whatever you call depression drugs, or those kind of things, than even on the other kind of drugs, because it's more common, like people can get that easier. So there's a lot of horrible things go on in that realm. However, I'm really getting going tonight on this, but I needed to get this out, or let it out, I guess, William, is what I needed to do.
He's blowing off
However,
steam. He's blowing off
Sorry?
steam. He's blowing off steam.
Thank you. So again, you know, it's a revealing of this whole societal trend that we've had towards this liberal mindset and this pharmaceutical industry and the government getting involved in drugs and alcohol and everything else. It's just, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me. So we're gonna work on all those issues that once I'm in a position of leadership. I don't want to call myself a politician, so it's in a leadership position. But the one thing I wanted to say about these young fellows, these police officers and stuff, is thinking about their workout is fine, but you're armed, you have, you know, bulletproof vests on and stuff. If we get a little hint of some kind of child trafficking or pornography ring or anything like that, let's just stay out of the drug business for now and just talk about human trafficking and children for a minute, okay? So if we get a little whiff of that and say, well, you know, there's this old tunnel system down by the Calgary Stampede, and you know, a lot of children go missing during the Stampede, or there's this little tunnel system over by the Armory down on 9th Avenue, or just off 9th Avenue and 10th Street, which I've heard rumors about, okay? Well, let's go into those basements. You guys, I'll come with you. Don't worry about it. Like, don't be scared. I'll be right there with you. And if you want me to go first, I will. If you want to, you know, go in front with your armor on, that's fine too. But if we get a whiff of child trafficking or pedophilia or anything like that, we're going in there and we're going to go check it out, boys. That's what we're going to do with your spare time, because I know there's spare time on hands of police officers these days, and I'm not running them down. I'm just saying we're going to look into this stuff, because the truth has been revealed in so many ways in the last year or two. And when I come into this situation from the simple revealing that monetary stuff has been lied to by the banking system, that the whole idea of money creation, they're not telling us any truth. That's a very simple one, folks. So if they're not telling you the truth about that, the governments, I'm not blaming any individuals, but this government mindset, this system is not revealing that truth. What else are they not revealing? Okay. So that's about it. I think I better start smiling again, William, because otherwise the steam starts coming out of my ears and it lifts my hat.
Well, good. Actually, you know, I had a lighthearted comment that I wanted to add, so this might be a perfect time to throw it in.
Thank you.
I saw you with the white hat. I saw you with the, you know, the white shirt today, and I've got the white hat on, and you know, you're definitely feeling the passion today, which is awesome. I think it's another side of you that, you know, it's important for the Calgarians to see, because if they're going to have a mayor, it's important that, you know, you be responsible and they know what they're getting. So they're not just getting the guy who's always chuckling all the time. There's a guy there who's pretty passionate, pretty serious about some stuff. But I couldn't help but think, you know, I could see you, all you need is a badge, and you would be like the sheriff, you know, and you're coming in to clean up this cow town, you know?
Well, that's cute, you know, and some people don't know this, but Rodrigo Roja Duterte used to be the mayor of Davao City on Mindanao Island in the Philippines, okay? And I was so close to meeting that man, and I communicated with him directly through his associates, through his assistants, and everything else. And I'm still determined to meet that man. Okay, he became the president of the Philippines. First couple of years he was in there, you want to talk about cleaning house? First time I was in the Philippines, when he just got in, okay, when he just became president, there was armed people everywhere, machine guns in front of the shopping malls in Manila. You know, there was the drug situation and the crime in Manila was ridiculous. Davao City, where he used to be mayor, fourth safest city in the world, believe it or not. Okay. So when I came back to Manila the second time, a couple of years later, after he'd been in there for a while, cleaning up the drug lords, pulling the sheriff routine, which he did and got talked about as if he was murdering people and everything else. Bullshit. He said to his military, he said to his police officers, we're going to clean this up. We got to stop this. This is ridiculous. They're selling drugs to kids on the street. We got to stop this. So they started cleaning those drug lords up, and they went in, and there was some people injured and killed, but nobody was murdered. Those people drew their weapons on these police officers, and the police officers discharged. I'm not saying we're going to go that far in Calgary, William, but you know, it's like, when do you have enough? When does society have enough of this liberal mindset of just letting everything happen? Oh, don't worry about it. You know, it'll balance itself out. You know, we'll get into the drug business. We'll start selling pot, and then it'll work itself out. You know, like, come on, we got to start drawing the line somewhere. And I'm not a right-wing gun-toting Texan or anything. Don't by any means. But by God, you know, there's common sense got to happen here, folks. And that's what we're looking at. It's just common sense, okay?
Gotcha. Well, the intention is to clean up the city in areas where we don't know if it's exactly clean right now or not, because it's a bit of a mystery and it's hidden. So I think what you're saying is, let's look under the rocks. Let's look under the places that are hidden and see if it is safe, or if there's anything untoward going on, and you know, and deal with it, and really make this a good city, so that you could become the #1 city in the world that's the safest, instead of, you know, waiting for the Philippines to be on top of that list.
Yes, and especially when it comes to our children. I mean, you know, that's when my back really talking about having kids drugs on the street and stuff like that.
I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. Throughout the interview, in the last 5 or 10 minutes, we've been having audio problems. We didn't have any trouble hearing you, but it went very faint. Now, just now, it kind of disappeared on me here. So I'm not sure if it's a signal. I'm not seeing anything wrong with the signal, but the audio is, it sounds like you got a pillow over the microphone almost. So I don't know if your thumb went over it, but it just, like, we lost you there for a sec. I'm not sure if you're back yet or not. See you fine, just can't hear you very well.
I think maybe my thumb was over, was it? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you great now.
Yeah, I think I moved my thumb. I think I did that in one other video too, and I'm sorry about that, but hopefully we didn't get too many glitches there. And
well, everything else prior to the answer to this last question, everything else, you know, we could is audible. You can make sense.
Okay, thanks, brother. So yeah, I was just, you know, I was just talking about the children once again. And like I say, I can laugh my way out of situations with adults. And I mean, you know, I don't have a lot of sympathy for adults a lot of times, you know, because people are making some pretty shitty choices out there, but compassion for all of them, no doubt. You know, I wanted to mention one more thing before I kind of lose it off my mind. I had a walk down for an ice cream cone with a young fellow the other day, and I'd met him and, you know, got to be friends with him. He moved away now. He was living close to me and he moved away. But just before he left, we walked down and had an ice cream cone together. And this young man, he's still only 40 years old, but he was in our Canadian military, okay? And this is another story that I'd like to bring up because, you know, as mayor, Comfort Income is not only going to look after the, you know, the needs of the elderly and the children and the people that are homeless, if you want to use that language, but, you know, our military, there's a lot of people that suffered in the mind and that are on the streets, okay? A lot of men, yeah, a lot of young men. And it's like that all over the world. And a lot of that was, you know, unnecessary conflicts, you know? And this poor guy, he shared a story with me that was just heartbreaking, you know, like about how he actually killed a guy. And it was, you know, it was in Afghanistan. He was in a regiment that was actually there to protect Prince Harry, believe it or not. He worked with Prince Harry when he was in Canada, trained with him, sorry, not worked with him. And then his regiment, if you want to call it that, I'm not sure language, but they were there to help and protect him as they went into dangerous situations in Afghanistan. So this young man, he was in his early 20s at this time, right? And I'm going to tell this story because it's important that people know that this kind of stuff happened for no other reason than to get a handle on the opium fields of Afghanistan or the oil fields of Iraq, okay, and steal a bunch of gold, because otherwise it's all bullshit, okay? The rest of the stories that they tell about, oh, what happened to the weapons of mass destruction, you know? Oh, what happened to the chemical poisoning? Well, we're chemically poisoning ourselves with our food supplies and, you know, sticking things in our arms and stuff these days now, left, right, and center. So, you know, that story that was around at the time of the Middle East wars, or if you want to call them wars, I call them economic demolition. Those kind of excuses were there. So this young man was over there thinking he was, you know, doing his job for humanity, right? When it was, in the end, it really turns out that they were just thieving things, these corporate governments. Dick Cheney still got his oil pumpers working in Iraq, stole all the, you know, the potential supply of the locals, and, you know, Dick Cheney's pumping the oil now, and the Bush family and everybody else. Anyway, going off on a tangent. However, this idea that this poor young man was in that situation, and his friend who he trained with, and his best friend, and he said that in the world, was shot in the leg. And they were close enough to this guy that shot him that my friend killed him. And, you know, he's a wonderful young man, but I could see, you know, his challenges in life. And I can't imagine what my challenges in life would be if I was ever in that situation. You know, I used to belt a guy in the chin or once in a while and knock him down. And one guy did the funky chicken on the floor, scared the shit out of me, but it just knocked him out, thank God. But, you know, to actually kill a man, that's a horrible situation. And the amount of men, especially men, there's women too, probably in the Canadian military as well as American, especially the American military, that go through this. And then when they come home, they're left, you know, left to fend for themselves. Like, Jesus Christ, at least give them their comfort income so they have that home and their you know, needs met. So again, the comfort income issue, right?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you something. It's related to this. Actually, it's related to everything you've said today. And I wonder where you stand on this. I think I've mentioned this in past shows where there's a weekly radio show I tune into. It's about sovereignty and things of that nature. And that gentleman often says governments, when they first created the constitutions in the United States, which was all about freedom and sovereignty originally, although things changed along the way, but originally when they were doing the Constitution, the objective was for complete and total freedom. And that included being free from government rule, whereas would always be the people making the choices, not the governments. And part of that rule, if you will, was so that governments wouldn't be in charge of everything. They wouldn't be especially responsible for social things like you know, Canada Pension, or in the States, you know, the Social Security, or anything that has to do with social responsibilities. So in other words, this fellow on his radio show basically says government should never be entrusted to take care of social things. They should just manage, you know, the necessary things that a government needs to do to make sure things run well in society, but we shouldn't rely on them to take care of social needs. That's where, you know, separate nonprofit, or I don't know, even profit necessary, you know, in some cases, organizations come into play when it comes to social issues. I'm just wondering, do you have any kind of a stand or a belief on, should government take care of social things, or should that actually be separate, privatized, or not for profit, or any of that kind of thing? How do you feel about that?
Well, that really ties into the comfort income issue, William, because it becomes administrative only, right? You put the money into the hands of the people, and then from there, we don't have to have a special program where the government is saying, okay, we give this much to the people on AISH, for instance, you know, disabilities, and this much for people that have mental health abilities, this much for pension plans, this, Canada Pension or old age security, that kind of stuff, which is what I call social programs, right? Mm-hmm. But when you put that money into the people's hands, give them that freedom to choose, I think a lot of people are going to choose alternative health therapy and remedies, and they're going to choose healthy food, even if it, at this moment in time, organic food and healthy food might cost a little bit more. That's going to change in time too. Don't get me wrong, because that's ridiculous in my mind. It should be these, anybody that adds a chemical to food needs to pay a price, okay? Not someone who takes it out of the food and calls it organic needs to pay a price. That's ridiculous.
And jump in. And if they're putting chemicals into our foods and into our soil, then they also should be responsible for that. And they, you're talking at the beginning about the politicians taking responsibility for the choices that they've made and the actions that they've taken rather than blaming someone else. I would think that would also apply to any growers and any control over top of the growers that kind of force the growers to have to do what they do.
I got excited there, William. I think that's the first time in our show that William has put his finger up and started shaking it.
Darn tootin'. Your fault. See, I'm blaming you. I'm not taking responsibility.
That was beautiful, William. I sensed some passion in there when he was shaking his finger. They should need. That was wonderful, brother. Thank you. Yeah, I think we're getting close to the end of the show here. I think aren't we? Like I think I've kind of blew my stack on pretty well every issue that I could think of tonight,
Now.
But I still got about another 6 kilometers to go to get to the train and home, so I'm going to head out before too long either. But I wanted to give those props to another divine meeting that I had this afternoon, okay? So, Ozone Dave, and that's his name. I didn't make it up, like Ozone Dave Clark. And he's got it on his paper, okay? So I walk into this public washroom along the trail by the river, and here's this guy with a black mask on and head covering. I think he had a hat on, and he's putting up signs. And I'm like, okay. And I walked past, and then he turned around and he just came at me with this piece of paper. He says, hi, how are you doing? I'm running for mayor. And he's talking like 90 miles an hour. And I said, well, I am the mayor. And he says, well, I'm running for mayor. I said, well, I am the mayor. I'm running for mayor. And he says, are you serious? I said, yeah, I'm serious. I said, what, you want to arm wrestle? I was joking I thought he was going to joke with me. Then he says, and like, this guy's like high almost, like he's freaking, his mouth was moving faster than I think I can move my, I don't know what, but anyway, he's just going to town on me. And he says, well, I'm an athlete, or I was a pro athlete, and I'm still an athlete. Like, look at me. And he says, how old are you? And I said, I'm 60. How old are you? He says, I'm 63. And I said, holy shit, you're in good shape, brother. And I give him a little poke in the pec as I was going to arm wrestle him, eh? And then jokingly, I said, well, I'm not in this to compete. I'm just here divinely. I'm trusting source energy, and I am going to be the mayor. There's no doubt about that. It's a walk in the park. I'm running for mayor, and nobody's going to argue with me. He said, don't even try it. He goes, like, he says, starts waving his finger at me. He said, I told you, I'm not going to argue with you. Like, you do whatever you want. I said, well, I'm going to be the mayor. I started Oakley, whatever, sporting goods or something like that. He's like, I guess the guy's wealthy. I don't know. He didn't seem like it. He was running his mouth that fast that he'd be wealthy, but he was really, he had all this stuff going for him. And he was going to bring in Brett Wilson. If you know who Brett Wilson here is in Calgary, Dragon's Den millionaire, whether he's in the credit game or not, I'm not going to say. I have nothing against Brett. I know him from a friend who works for him. If I needed to get some backing, I could ask my friend to ask Brett, and I would say, I don't want your money, but you have a lot of influence, and we may go there, who knows? But I'm not going to get him to back me like this guy's getting backed by Brett Wilson. Well, I don't know that, and if he is, that's great. So I started to try to get away, and I went into the urinal, follows me into the bathroom. Look up, he says, and I looked up in above the urinal, and there's his name again, Oakley, Ozone Dave. I look up and I'm like, really, buddy? And then he starts yapping behind me again. And I looked at the sign and it says, I'm Dave Clark. I'm 56-year-old. So I look back at him. I'm taking a leak and look back over my shoulder. I said, I thought you said you're 63. He says, well, I was just trying to make you feel good. And I'm like, well, it's not a really great way to introduce yourself by lying to somebody about your age. I said, I don't know about you. I said, so I started to leave and he's just on me, you know? So I had this paper in my hand and I turned around. And by this time we were outside the John and there was a bunch of people around and he's still yapping at me about how nobody's going to compete with me. I've got this thing. I'm the mayor. I'm going to be the mayor. And I said, buddy, you're kind of weird. And these people were watching me and I just tore up his paper. He says, now we're at war. He goes, I'm like, no, we're not. I said, I just tore up some garbage. I said, I'm going to throw it in the garbage. I said, buddy, I love you, but you're weird. And I turned around and walked away. He was still yattering away to these other people behind me as I walked away. So what I wanted to say, Mayor Laddick, sorry, I got mixed up there. William, is that there's some pretty weird guys running for mayor.
Anybody we know?
Any of them what we know? I thought we'd end the show with that little story, and hopefully people enjoyed it after we blew our lid for a little while.
Well, my story.
Even William with his finger shaking.
That's right. You're darn right. I got my finger shaking at you, and don't you forget it. I'll tell you what. But before I got a little story too. It's not quite as colorful as yours, but I think it's still kind of fun. It helps to lighten the show a little bit because we went a little deep and a little heavy there for a while. I had an experience. I love to play golf, and I had an opportunity to golf at Banff Springs. This was quite a ways back. We're talking the late 80s now, I think. But I was with a group of people, and they dropped me off at the golf course. They were doing other things, and I wanted to go golfing, and thought I could get on because I was single, and I wasn't able to do it. So I ended up going to the putting green, and I started putting. And for whatever reason, I was lights on fire. Like I was sinking putts left, right, and center on the practice green, you know, from 30 feet out and that kind of stuff. And by the time I did this, like the third time in a row, I hear this loud applause coming from the Banff Springs Hotel. There's an upper balcony that oversees the putting green. And there's all these Japanese tourists with their, you know, Nikon cameras and taking pictures, you know, thinking like maybe I was a professional or something, you know, a professional.
That's awesome.
And then they were saying, and then I, you know, it was my 15 minutes of glory, I guess, if you will. But then I said, well, where do you want me to putt next? And you know, and they'd point and I'd putt and I'd sink one or I'd get one really close, and more applause, you know, thank you very much, thank you. And this went on for about, you know, 5 to 10 minutes. So it was, I didn't get a chance to golf Banff Springs that day, and that was my first opportunity to try it. But that memory will last, you know, for a long time. So there's my Alberta story that had a little funny twist to it.
Oh, beautiful, William. I love it. It's that, you know, it's like our channel, the authentic ones. I love authentic stories, and I hope that people are enjoying our authentic stories, because that's what we're here for. And we're not going to pull any wool over anybody's eyes, obviously. We're going to pull some veils back, and we're going to continue doing that.
You're right. I think the one thing you can say about our show is we actually don't pull wool over. We actually take wool off, and we try to see what's under the rocks, you know, like lift a few rocks out and see what's going on underneath there, and say, okay, all right, if we want Calgary to be the best city in the world, we got to have Randall as mayor, and then we also got to clean up anything underneath. You know, we can't just clean what's on the surface and pretend like there's nothing going on below the surface. So I think it's been a very passionate show. We had some fun at the same time, as we always do, and I'm very grateful for that. So Randall, unless you have anything else you'd like to add, I'd like to ask you to wrap up the show with your wonderful blessing, as you always do.
You betcha. Thank you, William. So this one's for the kids, okay? This show is for the children, even though it's not made for children. It's for the adults to be responsible and to wake up and to act responsibly, which we've said many times, and William said it too: responsible, responsible, responsible. So with peace, harmony, love, abundance, and freedom for everyone and everything every day on our minds, William and I say in abundance, sovereignty, health, love, and euphoria. Go out there and have some fun, guys, and we'll see you next week. We love you. Love you, William.